Hello and welcome back to another FPL video. Today we are going over our game week 3 transfer tips, and I apologise that it's coming out a little bit later. I was busy at the start of the week. I was away for a couple of days, but we are back to normal. We're going to have today's video with the transfer tips, and then we'll do a double upload tomorrow with the best captaincy and then the team selection as well. So getting straight into things, we've got our players from last week on the screen and how we got on with our game week 2 transfer tips, and we've managed to, I would argue, at least do quite well. We said to buy Robinson. He done quite well. He ended up with a 7-pointer after picking up an assist and 2 bonus points as well, which was brilliant. Exactly what we're looking for. Kwanzaa, we said to sell. Again, he did drop in price twice actually. He's now 4.3 million since we last recorded that, and he obviously didn't play at the weekend as well, so it was a really nice sell with him. Barco, now I'm going to label Barco as a success because this could be easily a bit of a cop-out, but I think keeping him was definitely the best option. Obviously, he is now moved, which means he's going to be price locked. You don't have to worry about his price. And the fact he's only a 4 million defender, you can just keep him on the bench. You don't have to worry about that. And for me, I think it would have been more of an L to waste a transfer on trying to get him out than just keeping him and playing him on the bench. So the fact that he's now price locked means it's totally fine. You can just keep him on the bench until you wildcard. We've also got Nkunku in here. Now, for me, I think he was the only unsuccessful one. Trying to say to keep him, I mean, I think at the time it was the sensible option. We only had game week 1 to go off of when he come off on the 57th minute. Obviously, he now has, he was on the bench and came on for about 5 minutes at the end of game week 2. So that was an unfortunate one. He only picked up 1 point. He ended up playing in the Conference League as well, which we only got 57 minutes, so that's not ideal. And then finally Havertz, I did say to avoid him because he had some pretty difficult fixtures coming up, and again he picked up a 2-pointer against Aston Villa, so once again I would count that as a win. Now, speaking of Nkunku, we have him back once again for another round, and we are basically saying sell him this time. I think after having now really 3 games of data with the Conference League game and the 2 league games, I don't think he's really going to be a good option. I think most people already know that. He has already dropped in price, and he does look as though he's going to be dropping in price again tonight as of Thursday night. So if you're watching this today, I would definitely be looking to try get him before he get him out before he drops to 6.3 million. You can see by his expected points as well, they've also dropped a massive ton, down to 2.2, 2.1 and 2.1, because his minutes just aren't really there. If he's going to be getting less than 60 minutes when he starts, that's obviously not going to be ideal, and if he's going to not even start and come off the bench, obviously we don't really want him. So I think even though despite he has the really good fixtures, you could be tempted to keep him, I would really just be looking to get rid of him, because there's really no point in having good fixtures if he's not going to play. In terms of looking at his replacement, however, a lot of people have started to bring in his Chelsea counterpart in Noni Madueke. Now for me, I'm labelling him down as an avoid. Now I think he has the most transferred player in this week with 735 transfers, which is absolutely massive. Now obviously he had a massive game week 2 as well after scoring a hat-trick, and I believe it was a 20-pointer that he picked up, which was huge. Now my reasoning for avoiding him is because even though despite scoring a hat-trick, when you look at the underlying stats, his XG isn't actually that high. He only picked up a 0.56 XG in that entire game where he scored a hat-trick. And then when you look at his XG over the course of the season, he is sitting, I believe it's something about 36th, 37th place. I think it is around that at least. And when you compare it to some other players that are around the same area, he's up there with the likes of Smith Rowe and João Pedro, who are very good options as well at a much cheaper price. Now, for me with the Chelsea assets, I just don't really know how much you can guarantee their minutes. Of course, Madueke has looked brilliant, and after scoring a hat-trick, he is probably going to get a lot more game time than you would have thought at the start of the season, but there's just so much rotation that could possibly happen with the Chelsea squad, and for me, on Madueke, as much as he did well in the last game week, I'd be looking to give it a couple more weeks. And yes, the fixtures will probably change and they won't be as easy as they currently are, but I just don't think 1 game week is enough for me to convince me that Madueke is the perfect Nkunku replacement. So for me, it would be an avoid this week. Next, a very popular player that is being heavily sold off is going to be Eze. Now, for me, I'm 100% looking to keep him. When you look at the stats for Eze, he's taken the most shots in the whole Premier League, and he's also still sitting at 4th in terms of predicted points, and that's only behind your huge hitters, your big expensive players, and that's for the next 4 game weeks. Now, I put out a tweet about him and Bruno Fernandes, but mostly focusing on Eze. I think people obviously are just taking him out because it's now been 2 games and he hasn't had a return yet. But when you just look at his stats and stuff like that, he is, for me, actually, it would probably be a buy right now rather than a sell. You can see he's due to drop in price tonight as well, so it would be one that I'd definitely be looking at as a potential buy over the next couple of weeks. You can look at the fixtures as well. Chelsea away obviously isn't going to be an ideal fixture, but he has Leicester at home next week, where he's expected to score 7.2 points, which is still a massive amount, and obviously a lot bigger than a lot of your players who are a lot more expensive. So for me, 100%, I would be looking to keep him because he has looked fantastic. And any other day, you look at game week 1 where he could have easily scored 2 or 3 goals. He would easily be like 7.1, 7.2 million right now rather than looking to drop in price. So I'd give him a couple more weeks. If he continues to not return, then obviously yes, that's when you can look to sell him. But looking at his stats and looking where he is and compared to other players, I would 100% be keeping him. Now, next up, we're looking at another Nkunku replacement who a lot of people are bringing in this week, and that's the 5 million or now 5.1 million Morgan Rogers. Now, for me, again, it's another player that looks really good on the eye. I think he looked fantastic for Aston Villa against Arsenal, but when you're looking at the stats in terms of an FPL asset, I just don't really think he is there. I did a quick comparison with even someone like just Jack Harrison, who's obviously a little bit more expensive, but someone who has no hype around him in FPL. And when you're looking at the stats that mean much, like the people actually look at for FPL, the stats that mean something, Jack Harrison's actually a bit better in basically every stat. So when you're looking at like kind of hoping for Morgan Rogers returns, yes, he's going to be playing, and he is playing 90 minutes. But in terms of getting goals and assists, I don't really think he's going to be a massive like heavy hitter in terms of picking up a lot of points, those double-digit hauls and stuff like that. Now, as a 5 million asset, obviously fantastic. He's great to free up budget if you're wanting to try have the likes of Salah, Palmer, Haaland and stuff like that in your team. But for me, I just don't think I'd be looking to transfer him in purely because I don't think he's going to score too many points. I think you can look at like alternatives just a little bit more expensive, likes of Minty and Smith Rowe as well, who look quite good. Obviously the fixtures look really nice for him, and would he be worth a gamble? Probably. Like he's cheap enough. If you're really looking to fit in budget, then yeah, sure, go for him. But for me, just looking at the stats, I think I'd be avoiding him at least for the next couple of weeks. Now, the other person involved in the Twitter thread, another person I really do think we should be looking to keep, and that's Bruno Fernandes. Now, if you're looking for a proper in-depth reason as to why you should keep Bruno Fernandes, again, just head over to my Twitter. I've got a full thread on the reason and why. But for me, again, he's one of those players that just does, like, he ticks all the boxes for FPL. I think the only thing that you don't really get from him anymore is those massive, double-digit, 20 plus pointer hauls. He doesn't really get like hat tricks and stuff as he did a couple of seasons ago, but he is still, I would say a 90-minute man, but obviously he came off as a sub. He does tend to be a 90-minute man. He's obviously on penalties, he's on a lot of set pieces and stuff as well. And again, you're still looking at his points, his expected points. They're still over 5 for the next couple of games. You could argue that he's got a difficult fixture against Liverpool, but he's actually expected to score more points against Liverpool than he is, for example, against Crystal Palace away in 3 weeks' time. So for me, 100% a keep. The fixtures are decent. He could easily do something, even if they just get a penalty. Again, I think he is another player that if a couple weeks go down the line and he's only picked up maybe an assist or he's still not returning, then obviously yes, at that point you try and look to get rid of him. But right now it's only game week 3. Again, as I said at the start of the season, I'd be looking to try and roll your transfer as much as possible, so I really don't think Bruno Fernandes is a huge fire that needs to put out right now, and I'd be looking to keep him for another couple of weeks. Next week, we're looking at last year's star. We're looking at Ollie Watkins. Now, for me, if I'm looking to buy a Aston Villa attacker, I'd be looking towards Watkins rather than Rodgers. Obviously, he is a lot more expensive, but for me, he's more proven. And again, the really good fixtures, I think he could do really nicely. And obviously, he hasn't done anything in game week 1 and 2. Could have easily got a goal against Arsenal. It just didn't seem to be happening for him whatsoever. Raya obviously pulled off that wonder save as well, which denied him scoring a goal. In which case, I think if he did score that goal, I think he would be a lot more popular in terms of transfers in this week. I think people are just looking at the fact that he hasn't returned yet as a reason not to bring him in. But again, looking at the fixtures, looking against Everton, against Leicester, against Wolves, some of the worst defences we've seen in the first 2 weeks, and I think he could easily do really, really nicely here. Now, obviously, with only 3 striker spots as well, you will be looking for a reason to get Watkins in, and that's going to be selling one of your other attackers. Now, for me, Alexander Isak looks as though he's the popular one. He's the one who's similar priced, but I would be looking to keep Isak. Again, someone who has just been a little bit unlucky. It was the most popular player in game week 1. If you watch the YouTuber drafts video, he was in all 50 YouTuber drafts, so you can see how highly owned. I think he was actually the highest owned player in game week 1. To start the season off. It has definitely been a little bit disappointing. You know, his XG has been pretty low, his expected assists as well has been pretty low, and he just hasn't really picked up too many points. I think the fixtures for Newcastle are not really starting to pick up a bit, but it's fixtures where Isak could do really well. I think he could easily score against Spurs at home. They have Wolves away next week, Fulham away the week after. I think there's definitely potential for Isak to do something, and I think people would regret selling him. He is one of those players that can easily pop up with a goal or two right out of nowhere, and obviously will be in penalties with Callum Wilson out, and he has been playing 90 minutes in the first 2 games as well. So for me, he's definitely, again, similar to what I said with Bruno Fernandes. I think there's no reason to transfer him out right now. We want to be trying to save our transfers as much as possible now that we can build up to 5, and I don't think Isak is playing badly enough, and like obviously with the likes of Nkunku and Kwanzaa, they're players who you need to transfer out. Isak's been playing 90 minutes, he's just kind of waiting on that opportunity. I'd definitely be looking to keep him because I don't think he is, again, the biggest fire that you have to put out right now. So I'd give him another couple weeks. Again, if he continues to be on a poor form, if you give him 2 or 3 more weeks and he still doesn't return, at that point we will probably be looking to sell. But for now, I think he is a keep. Next up, we're looking at a 4.5 million Manchester City defender in Rico Lewis. Now, he is another one who has played 90 minutes in game week 1 and game week 2. Now, I think as the weeks go on, his minutes will be managed a little bit. I think obviously with Kyle Walker having to come into the squad at some point, but Lewis has been absolutely brilliant, and I think when you can afford, or when you're able to get the opportunity to get a Man City defender in for so cheap, you should definitely be trying to do it as soon as possible. And the thing with Lewis, obviously a lot of people have Vardiol. Vardiol seems to be the one who's sitting back a lot more, and you can see by Lewis's heat map as well, Lewis is getting very, very far forward. He's in the box quite a lot as well. Ended up hitting the bar in game week 2, where again, if he scored, obviously there would be a lot more hype around him as a pick as well. He has still been transferred in 180,000 times, which does look as though he's going to go up in price tonight as well. So if you're looking for a 4.5 mil defender, I think he could be a great, great pick. Again, probably going to have to give it a couple weeks in terms of establishing how many minutes he is going to get, but I think with the next 2 fixtures with West Ham and Brentford, again, he could easily pick up an attack and return, and there's definitely a high chance of clean sheet potential as well. And he's another one of those 4.5 million defenders that you can rotate with your other guys. Obviously, if you've got the likes of Vardiol on your team, you want to be playing him every single match. Obviously, with this game against Arsenal up and coming, you could easily just bench Rico Lewis. He's not really taking up too much budget, and there's no real reason, in my opinion, not to take that punt. I think he could be a really nice option to buy. So that rounds up this week's transfer tips. We have 8 options for you on screen. We have 2 buys, 1 sell, 3 keeps, and 2 avoids as well that you should look into this week. Hopefully we can do a little bit better and up that success rate. Hopefully we can get into the 90%, and hopefully this goes quite well. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to put notifications on because we're doing a double upload tomorrow, so make sure to watch out for that. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.